Welcome back. It's The Verdict right here on Channels Television. It's our live, robust coverage of everything to do with the 2019 elections. We've had more states in. INEC is on a brief break, so we'll be talking more as we wait for INEC to weigh in. And thanks to all our viewers. We see Cyprus, we see Malaysia, and London, Australia as well. The hashtag is The Verdict. Thanks for sending those pictures in, and we'll continue to send them in. Yeah?
Now, talking about results, let's just step down a bit and see what's coming from the National Assembly. This is from Akwa Ibom. Mr. Christopher Stephen Ekpenyong of the PDP has been declared winner of the Akwa Ibom Northwest Senatorial election. He polled 118,215 votes to beat Godswill Akpabio of APC, who scored 83,158 votes. The result was announced by the returning officer, Professor Pt.2. And also in Benue State, Professor Nicodemus Ochai has announced the result for the controversial Benue Northwest Senatorial District election, with the PDP candidate and Chairman House of Representatives Committee on FCT, Honorable Emmanuel Okajev, polling 157,726 votes to beat the leader of the All Progressives Congress in Benue State and the current occupant of the seat, George Akume, who polled 115,422 out of the 287,028 valid votes cast. As results from Benue and Akwa Ibom in the National Assembly. Let's get back to our conversation, or just before we do that, our viewers, we ask that you let us know how you're also waiting for the results. Send us pictures of you waiting on INEC to send in all the results as they come in. We say you should send that using the hashtag The Verdict, or the hashtag 2019 elections, or the hashtag I voted as well, so that we can...
And someone online says, hashtag INEC, I'm still waiting. Well, yes, we all are. Yeah.
Okay, maybe we should add another hashtag.
No, we have enough hashtag.
Okay, back to our conversation here. So, Mrs. Obey, I wanted to ask you a question. You're a lawyer. Now, in the course of INEC coming up, reading out the results, we've had several people come in to complain the amount of valid votes that were counted or rejected votes. And then the disparity in the figures, some of them have come up with those complaints. But then there are these other ones about a recording of a REC, a resident electoral commissioner, who was under duress and had to announce a winner in one of the states in the National Assembly contest. He had to announce a winner, and then speculation of another REC who was being pressured in the northern part of the country to change a result already announced. How would all of this play out? When it comes to, because there will be litigations, as someone said.
Well, it's obviously it's a valid basis for filing an election petition. The trouble is that you need to be very sure of getting your own evidence. You know, when these elections are announced, it's difficult to overemphasize the importance of having party agents on whom you can rely. Because the INEC staff, well, if I'm an INEC staff and I'm under threat, definitely I will announce whatever I'm asked to announce. But I'll make a report, you see. And INEC should also, when such things happen, because there's a situation where you make, you're forced to make the announcement, and then you just go and say, well, I finished with that. That should not be allowed to happen. Once such reports come out, then INEC should make sure that they get a sworn statement from their own staff. Because between cup and lip, as they say, there's many a slip. And you know, you see these situations where somebody files a petition and then they have to have the evidence, and the evidence has to be, you know, then suddenly the evidence is no longer
And
there.
then you start hearing things like they didn't prove beyond reasonable doubt.
Well, I mean, yes, when the issue is allegation of crime, which is what this allegation of duress or threat of violence would be, then it has to be proved beyond a reasonable doubt. When it's just a matter of the mathematics, then that's just that you don't have to prove anything beyond reasonable doubt. You just have to say, do the maths.
But I think the way INEC has designed it, I think it makes it easier, and I don't see why anybody should do that, because if INEC says that after each election time has ended, you count it there and then.
Which you do.
Which you do, yeah. Which you said that if you have a reliable party agent, he notes it down. And everybody present there also are witnesses, would notice down. Like in my polling unit, I was there when they announced everything.
Where was that?
In 12, Lekki, on Admiralty. And PDP won. And for me, it was 240 something, I think, to 180 something APC. So what I'm saying is that how can you now put somebody under duress to record a wrong number when all the polling units will have announced?
Well, what you find is that the duress comes in at the stage of the collation. And this is why, I mean, from the get-go, we have been saying that the key to acceptability and people being willing to accept the result is transparency. And the Situation Room had referred to INEC's e-platform, wanting to say that, look, let us be there to observe as these results are coming in. But I also need to refer to my experience as an election observer in Kenya 2 or 3 years ago. And forget about the fact that those elections were set aside for, not necessarily for what happened on election day. Now, we always like to say ordinary Kenya. Ordinary Kenya, they had an election in which there were 6 ballot boxes that the voters had to mark and put their ballots in one day.
For all the offices.
For all the offices, from president down to, and they had special seats for women, which was why they had they had provincial elections, they had the provincial legislature and the 2 houses of the national, and then these separate seats for women. So that was 6 ballot boxes that had to be filled. But because I was an election observer for an international mission and they never like you to stay out late, or when there's any talk of there might be some problem, they say, quickly go back to your hotel. And so we went back to our hotel, but the following morning, we could go online, enter up the number of our polling station into the website, and we would see the result.
How big was the ballot sheet?
No. I mean, it was not bigger than ours. Okay. You know, I mean, there were 6 different elections is the point, and they were.
When you say they were not bigger than ours, you mean ours before
90,
or ours now?
Our
91 parties.
Because really, the issue is not the size of the, but it's really the fact that you could see. So if you had seen what was counted at your polling station, you could check that that is what is in the election management body's own figures. And then you'll be able to see. And, you know, when we hear all of this being forced to announce something here and something else, that's the problem. It's about the maths. I mean, as a young lawyer, when I was working with GOK Ajayi, the election in Ondo State, you got to a certain level, and everybody, because all the polling agents, in those days we only had about 5 parties, or I think 6 parties by then, in 1983, all the polling agents had to sign the result sheet. And everybody would have the same thing, and everybody would sign everybody else's, including the police and the security. And then, and this would happen at every level. And then you got to the stage where you had your 13 local governments, and suddenly you came out with any figure you liked. Of course, all you had to do was say, excuse me, do the math. This is the point at which we all last agreed. Add it up. And this was the figure. And that was how Michael Adjasin, he didn't talk about crime, he didn't talk about forgery, he didn't talk about anything. He just said, do the maths.
Yeah, these are the documents. This is the figure. Please explain how it ends up this way.
It's no brainer.
He didn't even ask them to explain. He just said, do the maths, and when you do the maths,
we keep hearing it's a no-brainer. It's not rocket science. It's easy. Just do the mathematics. But then,
has it not become much more? I'm sorry. Has it not become much more difficult than simply that now? Because there are so many things that seem to come into. There are issues such as when they say, did it do substantial compliance?
Yes.
I mean, when you bring up issues like substantial compliance, then that is subject to interpretation. If the numbers that you're talking about are not higher than particular numbers, and so as we have done more and more elections, it appears as if more and more opportunities have been given for people to simply say, which we have heard several times, win first. Because it's almost impossible to. So I guess the question at this point to ask is, when you have all these people, like the person who's talking about announcing results under duress, you're a lawyer, man. How do you actually prove? Especially you don't have somebody. You don't have somebody with a gun, with a physical gun to your head.
And you're not recording it either.
And you're not recording this item.
No, that's why I'm saying that the presence of your own party agents is important. But you should also be able to call the person and ask them to explain, because if the results that they are asked to announce do not tally number-wise, then they would be asked to explain, well, how did you get this, we have 2 + 2. How is it that you managed to announce 20? And they would have to explain. So if they're not going to give the excuse of, I was under duress, then what was it, that I was under inducement? I mean,
in this case here, we do actually, I heard the recording where he was saying, I'm announcing this result under duress, but I'll still go ahead. Can that electronic recording be admissible in court?
Why not?
Well,
there's no problem about admitting evidence into court, and at the end of the day, you prove your case.
Exactly, because I was going to say you could also disprove it and say, I could be in a room and say I was under and you were not. So,
but you also still will bring up those individual figures that need to be tallied. I mean, unless it's the person at individual polling stations who is saying, I have counted these votes and I'm being forced. But then why did all the other agents sign? Why would they sign?
Mr. Basa, the initial plan by INEC is that, as you said earlier, each polling unit, when you end, you count and it's announced for everybody to see.
That's what happens.
Now, maybe I could be wrong here, but the idea, I believe, with the new Electoral Act was that from that polling unit, they're supposed to send the figure to INEC.
Yes.
So if this polling unit stands its own, the entire polling units in this area send theirs, the local government send theirs, the state send, and now put it all together. If we get to that point, would that make any difference?
Of course. To me, when INEC...
Would it reduce the issues of manipulation and announcing results under duress?
To me, it cancels it out. That's the truth. It cancels it out, because at the end of the day, like we know, is that the total sent to INEC must tally with the total the agents have with them. If it differs by 1, it's either of 2 things. There's manipulation or there's simple arithmetic mistake. But that you are now under duress, and I don't get it. You can't be under duress and be announcing that I am under duress. I don't get it. Something is wrong somewhere.
Well, the person was probably trying to put it on record that I don't want to announce it. It could even be that I haven't got all the figures. But the point is that he's saying it is one thing, but then he would also, he or she would also now show what the actual figures were. They need to make reports to...
Yeah, you need to take it a step further, because even if you record it, I don't know whether there's what provision there is for INEC to say, if in this situation, if this happens, this is what you do. Call the police, or, you can't just go beyond, what I've announced, I'm under duress, and then it ends there.
Yeah, there has to be some guidelines to it. Yeah, if not so, you could even be lying about it.
But beyond that, I was going to ask also the question, when you have number of votes cast, and then you have number of voided votes, that doesn't tally with number of people accredited. That came up, and somebody raised that observation that those people are not accounted for. And when we have simultaneous voting, so how would they sort that out? I don't know.
It's still a matter of calculation. If the number of accredited voters and it should tally with the total and the discounted votes. It must total. Because if you have, let's assume we have 10 votes accredited, and then you have 8 actually voting and you discount 2. 8 + 2 is 10. I mean,
but you remember that story that I told you about what I was told, and I must say that this is hearsay, of course, but what I was told about, do you only want to vote for presidential? Okay, we'll keep these other 2. I mean, really, even at that level, it could be that you really need to just go and vote for a senator or something. So there are ways in which the thing could slip up. There could be a slip up. But
because you're voting for 3 candidates and you may just vote for one and not do the other 2.
It's possible.
Yeah, but then that means that, but you see, to me, it's still the same thing, because you are given 3 sheets of papers in this last one. Okay. So that means that when you are coming, whether you vote or you don't vote, you still put the paper in there.
Put the paper in there. So yeah. Let's just.
Well, you don't have to.
Yes, and we shall finish this off when we come back from the break. Yes,
go on break down. Welcome back to the Verdict Studios here on Channels Television, where we're giving comprehensive coverage of the 2019 elections. And at this point, we want to bring into the conversation a guest from our Benin studios, Professor Ben Osadolo is a professor of history and international studies. Prof, it's nice to have you join us. Let me launch you stage into the conversation. What have you made of the results so far?
Well, it's quite interesting because there were a lot of forecasts, a lot of expectations about the outcome of the federal elections on Saturday. And so far, we have been experiencing some kind of setbacks for some expectations from some politicians, and it didn't appear as if what some persons expected had been the outcome of the results. And this is because politics is quite interesting. It is not the way that we would think that will be the outcome of the results. If you look at the presidential election results, there were all kinds of forecasts, there were all kinds of predictions, but there have been some offsets. If you look at National Assembly results, the same offsets, then for some persons it is worrisome. For some others, they were not expected to be so. But for me, I strongly believe that what is happening so far, in spite of the reactions of some persons and some political parties, if the elections have been seen to be free and fair, credible and transparent, and to some extent peaceful, then of course we should accept the outcome of the elections. But there have been some other reports of intimidations. There have been some reports of some polling officers being forced to do what they were not expected to do. In other words, I don't really know, and I've not been able to verify how these reports through the social media, for example, some through the mainstream media, can be authenticated by INEC officials, either in Abuja or in the various states where these reports have been lodged. But certainly, what is of great concern to me now is the kind of irregularities that have been reported in some of the states and in some of the wards and some of the polling stations. How these irregularities can be investigated. But you see, Nigeria is a country where once results have been declared, it's difficult to say, no, this is not what really happened. This is what actually is what happened. Litigations will begin to go on for a long time. This is why I feel that the results so far may create further problems in the Nigerian polity. But if INEC, as it has said will remain independent and transparent and ensure that what is being released is free and fair, then of course Nigerians have no alternative than to accept the outcome of the results. But more worrisome is not just the federal elections for the National Assembly, it's the presidential elections. The permutations, the expectations didn't seem to work out for some persons and some political parties and affiliations. But definitely we have to accept the result the way it is being presented until the final collation and announcement of the results tonight. Then precisely we know what the declaration will be.
Prof, in areas where the smart card reader was not used for no fault of anybody's, perhaps, how do you think that kind of thing can be sorted out? Because even during the collation and the announcement, you hear the INEC chairman ask why certain wards or units were cancelled, and then you hear they didn't use the smart card reader. But it doesn't say the circumstances under which it was not used, whether it was just a case of not using it or it didn't work. If it's found to be another case, perhaps if it's found to be that it was no fault of those people at the unit, how do they seek redress? Or will we just take it like that, as in the result has come and gone?
Certainly not. The use of the card reader itself is quite good, but it's a kind of technology that is not ours. And so we didn't even know how to operate the card readers. I went to vote myself, and I saw how some of the officers were battling with the card readers. And in some cases, operating the card reader itself may be a problem. But in some cases, some of these card readers were faulty and they were not used. And it's difficult, again, to reconcile the card readers with what actually the polling officers had recorded in their polling registers, in the voters' register. Now, if we cannot reconcile any of this, and INEC itself is in a problem with litigation to reconcile those who voted with the card readers malfunctioning and those who didn't use the card readers and those who just voted manually like that, it will be a major problem. How do we reconcile all of this? In some cases, we have heard about reports where some of these card readers have been destroyed. In some cases, we have heard reports about how some of these card readers have disappeared. Now, what exactly do we do? How do we reconcile them? In some cases, we have heard of how an INEC office has been burnt down, apparently with those relevant documents that would have been used in case of litigation. So what exactly do we do? That's the problem. It's a serious matter, and I think we should attend to it seriously in this country.
Professor Ben Ostadolo from our Benin Studios, Professor of History and International Studies, thank you very much for joining us on this segment of The Verdict. It's been a pleasure having you with us. We're going to be taking a break for a comprehensive news package at 8 o'clock. And we want to also thank our guests here. I've just been asked to thank Mr. Idowu Obasa. Thank you so much for being with us on this segment. It's been a pleasure having you. Mr. Obe, thank you so much for being with us. Sometimes the time just runs by and we're not able to actually do justice to everything. But we'll take that break now, and then we'll come back after the news.